Charleston walked straight into the fire. Charleston White thought he was simply changing a flight and handling unfinished business in Houston. But within hours, what looked like an ordinary stop turned into the kind of situation where one wrong assumption could change the entire story. After his recent interview and public back and forth involving J. Prince, Charleston had already been warned that Houston might not feel like neutral territory. He brushed that possibility aside. Then he walked into a restaurant and, according to his own account, realized far too late that some of the people around him were connected to the very circle at the center of the controversy. At first, nothing seemed serious. A woman passed by, stepped on his shoe, and kept moving. Charleston said he assumed she was simply another person inside the establishment. What he claims he did not know was that she was connected to J. Prince's family. That detail alone immediately changed how he looked back at everything happening around him. Suddenly, casual movement inside the restaurant did not feel so casual anymore. Then Charleston noticed something else. A man nearby began having a long conversation with Dr. Candace Matthews' husband. Charleston said he watched the exchange carefully, studying the body language and trying to understand why the conversation seemed to carry so much weight. Minutes passed. Nobody openly confronted him. Nobody explained what was happening. But Charleston began wondering whether the people inside already knew exactly who had just walked through the door. That is where the tension really started. According to Charleston, he later realized there were connections inside that restaurant he had never been warned about. And because of the public tension surrounding his name and J. Prince, even ordinary conversations suddenly looked different through his eyes. To be clear, the source does not establish that anyone had been sent there to confront Charleston. That was part of the speculation surrounding the encounter, not a confirmed fact. But Charleston was already reading the room differently. And the biggest question was no longer why he entered that restaurant. It was whether somebody had already made a call the moment they saw him. Where are you watching from right now? If you think Charleston walked into that situation completely by accident, come on, If you believe there was more happening behind the scenes, come on, do. And subscribe to the channel. Because what happened next pushed this Houston controversy into an entirely different level. The restaurant encounter changes everything. The deeper Charleston White looked into that restaurant encounter, the less random it seemed from his point of view. He said he had walked in without understanding who owned the establishment, who might be connected to J. Prince's family, or why certain people suddenly appeared interested in his presence. Only afterward, according to Charleston, did the pieces begin falling into place. He remembered watching one man lean over and begin speaking with Dr. Candace Matthews' husband. What caught Charleston's attention was not simply the conversation itself, but how long it lasted. He estimated that the exchange continued for several minutes, long enough for him to begin studying every movement, every glance, and every change in posture. Charleston said he kept his eyes on the situation because the atmosphere felt different. Eventually, Dr. Matthews' husband reportedly got up smiling and laughing. According to Charleston's retelling, the conversation revealed that somebody nearby was upset and even remembered a previous exchange involving Charleston online. That realization immediately connected the restaurant encounter to something bigger. Charleston began wondering whether people inside recognized him before he understood who they were. He also questioned whether someone had contacted others after realizing he was there. But there is an important distinction. The source does not independently confirm that anyone was dispatched to the restaurant or that any coordinated confrontation was planned. Those possibilities remain Charleston's interpretation and part of the wider online speculation. Still, perception matters when tension is already high. Charleston believed he had entered that room peacefully. He said he was not searching for confrontation and had no intention of creating trouble. Yet once he learned about the connections surrounding the establishment, every ordinary detail suddenly appeared more significant. A phone call could look suspicious. A conversation could look coordinated. Even laughter across the room could suddenly feel like somebody knew something. He did not. And that is exactly how internet controversies grow. One person sees one moment. Another person interprets it differently. A short clip gets uploaded without full context. And within hours, Thousands of people are trying to reconstruct what happened from body language alone. But Charleston's biggest issue was about to move far beyond one restaurant, because the real fight in Houston was about a community event, and Charleston believed somebody wanted that event disrupted. The Houston event becomes the real battleground. Charleston White insisted that people online were already getting one major part of the Houston story wrong. He said he had not traveled there for a comedy show. He said he was going to participate in a community event. That difference became important because reports began circulating online, suggesting that one of Charleston's appearances had been canceled. Charleston pushed back hard against that narrative, arguing that bloggers had confused two completely different events, and then repeated the mistake until people started treating it like fact. To support his version, Charleston later played or referenced a phone conversation involving plans for the Houston trip. The discussion reportedly included arrival details, meeting arrangements, and plans connected to the following day. To Charleston, that conversation showed that he still had legitimate business connected to the community event. And suddenly, the controversy was no longer just Charleston versus Jay. Prince. There were organizers involved. There were local families involved. There were people who believed the event had a positive community purpose. Charleston argued that whatever personal disagreement existed between grown men should never interfere with programs designed to help other people. That became one of his strongest emotional points throughout the entire situation. He believed personal conflict had crossed into territory where it did not belong. According to Charleston, pressure had been placed on people surrounding the event after he declined requests to meet with individuals connected to the dispute. Again, that remains Charleston's allegation. The source does not independently establish who made specific calls, what was said privately, or whether anyone intentionally attempted to stop the event. But Charleston presented the situation as much larger than an internet argument. From his perspective, if two public figures had an issue, they could address each other directly. What bothered him was the possibility that organizations, children, families, or community workers could become collateral damage in a conflict they never created. That argument gave the drama a completely different emotional weight, because once a personal feud begins affecting people outside the feud, the question changes. It is no longer simply, who won the argument? It becomes, who is paying the price for it? And Charleston was about to make an even more explosive claim about where he believed the pressure was coming from. Charleston says pressure was coming from somewhere. Charleston White did not simply accuse the internet of misunderstanding his Houston trip. He claimed something more serious was happening behind the scenes. According to Charleston, people connected to the community event began receiving pressure. After he refused to participate in a sit-down, he suggested that calls may have reached local officials and argued that the situation suddenly became more complicated once his name was attached to the event. Charleston's position was simple. If somebody had a personal problem with him, deal with him, not the people organizing a community program. He repeatedly framed the controversy as a question of influence. How much power should any private individual have over what happens inside a city? Can reputation alone make people nervous enough to change plans? And where does influence end before intimidation begins? Those were the questions Charleston wanted his audience asking. But there is also a critical line between allegation and proof. The material provided does not independently confirm that Prince personally ordered anyone to interfere with the event. It also does not establish that local officials acted improperly. Charleston was describing what he believed happened and connecting events based on his own interpretation. That distinction matters because serious claims can spread faster than evidence. Still, Charleston's delivery made the story impossible to ignore. Instead of backing away, he became more confrontational. He argued that no single person controls all of Houston and rejected the idea that one powerful name should automatically decide who can move freely throughout the city. To supporters, that sounded fearless. To critics, it sounded reckless. And that division became fuel for the story, because Charleston White has built much of his public image around saying exactly what other people might hesitate to say, whether viewers agree with him or completely reject his approach. His statements often generate immediate reactions. That is exactly what happened here. The Houston situation spread from live streams to reaction channels, and suddenly, viewers who knew almost nothing about the original community event were choosing sides. But the biggest escalation had not happened yet, because soon, a cryptic message from Jay, Prints began circulating. It did not mention Charleston by name. It did not need to. The internet immediately connected the dots, and Charleston had absolutely no intention of ignoring it. J. Prince's cryptic message lights up the internet. Then came the post that changed the temperature of the entire controversy. J. Prince shared a cryptic message about refusing to lower yourself to another person's level, using imagery about people who create contamination and eventually face consequences. The message did not directly name Charleston White, but many viewers immediately interpreted it as a response to him. That ambiguity made the post even more powerful, because when somebody names you directly, there is little mystery. But when a message appears vague enough to deny and specific enough to recognize, the internet does the rest. Reaction channels started analyzing every phrase. Comment sections exploded. People began asking whether Prince had finally answered Charleston without giving Charleston the satisfaction of hearing his name. Charleston certainly took it personal, and instead of responding with another cryptic message, he did what Charleston White usually does. He went direct. He mocked the language, dismissed the symbolism, and argued that indirect statements did not intimidate him. His reaction reinforced the contrast between the two public styles. Prince appeared measured and coded. Charleston appeared loud, immediate, and confrontational. That difference became part of the entertainment. Supporters of Prince argued that silence and restraint showed control. Supporters of Charleston argued that direct speech showed courage, but neither side could prove exactly who the original message was aimed at unless Prince said so directly. That uncertainty only increased engagement. Every unanswered question became another video. Every video created another interpretation. Every interpretation became another reason for both audiences to keep watching. And then Charleston pushed the conversation beyond insults and public image. He began raising questions about law enforcement, investigative documents, and federal authorities. Those statements were far more serious than anything surrounding a restaurant or social media post. They were also the kind of statements that demanded careful language, because from this point forward, viewers needed to separate what Charleston alleged from what had actually been established. And Charleston was about to make claims that could not responsibly be repeated as proven fact without independent evidence. Charleston drops his most serious claims. Charleston White then took the Houston controversy into territory that was far more serious than personal insults. He claimed that he had spoken with federal authorities and said questions had been raised about how sensitive investigative information could allegedly have circulated. Charleston specifically questioned whether a police report connected to an open investigation had somehow reached people outside law enforcement. That was an explosive allegation, but it remains exactly that, an allegation made by Charleston in the source material. There is no independent evidence in the provided material establishing that Prince bribed Houston police officers, that law enforcement improperly provided him with documents, or that federal investigators reached the conclusions Charleston suggested. That distinction is essential. Charleston repeatedly asked how witness information, statements, and other sensitive details could allegedly become accessible outside official channels. He also suggested that federal authorities were interested in understanding those circumstances. Whether those claims were accurate could only be determined through evidence, official records, or statements from the relevant agencies, not through viral clips, not through reaction videos, and not simply because one person repeats an accusation forcefully. But Charleston understood something about the internet. Questions can travel almost as fast as accusations. Once he asked them publicly, thousands of viewers began repeating them. Reaction channels started dissecting every sentence. Old incidents were pulled back into discussion. People began connecting unrelated clips and building theories around them. And suddenly, a story that began with a restaurant encounter had turned into a much larger debate involving influence, law enforcement, accountability, and public trust. Charleston supporters argued that difficult questions should be asked no matter who feels uncomfortable. His critics argued that making serious claims publicly without presenting complete evidence can create reputational damage before anyone has a chance to respond. Both concerns can exist at the same time. Power deserves scrutiny, but scrutiny also requires evidence, and that became the central tension of the entire controversy. Because the bigger the story became, the harder it was to distinguish first-hand information from online speculation, and Charleston himself was about to make that exact argument. Only this time, his target was not Jay Prince, it was the bloggers covering him. Bloggers, rumors, and the fight over what's actually true. Charleston White suddenly turned the camera toward another group, the people making money covering the controversy. The bloggers, the reaction channels, the online personalities racing to upload first. Charleston argued that some creators were repeating sensational versions of his Houston trip without doing basic verification. One example became especially important to him: the claim that his Houston comedy show had been canceled. Charleston insisted there was no Houston comedy show to cancel. According to his version, his Houston plans involved a community event, while his comedy appearance was elsewhere. He pointed to a phone conversation about travel and event arrangements as evidence that people online had mixed separate situations together. Then Charleston made a broader point. Do not automatically believe every blogger. Check the source. Compare versions. Listen to the full conversation. Research what happened before deciding what is true. It was an unusual moment because Charleston, one of the most viral figures in the entire situation, was criticizing the same attention economy that helped spread his own comments. And he was not completely wrong about the mechanism. A dramatic headline can outrun a correction. A 15-second clip can outperform a 40-minute interview. And once people emotionally commit to one version of a story, new context sometimes does not matter. Charleston even acknowledged knowing some of the creators covering him, but still accused them of chasing numbers instead of doing enough homework. That criticism opened a much bigger question. How much responsibility does a creator have when covering allegations involving real people? Entertainment rewards speed. Responsible reporting rewards patience. Those incentives do not always match. And during a controversy, the difference becomes dangerous. One creator posts a theory, another reports the theory as something people are saying, a third removes that qualifier entirely. By the time the fourth video appears, viewers may think the theory was confirmed from the beginning. That cycle was happening in real time around Charleston's Houston story. And soon, the original dispute was almost being buried underneath the content created about it. The story was no longer only about Charleston White and J. Prince. It was becoming a story about the internet itself. Social media turns one conflict into a national debate. Once the Charleston White and J. Prince controversy reached larger platforms, the original Houston story started changing shape. People who had never watched the full interviews were suddenly forming strong opinions from short clips. One video showed Charleston angry, another showed a cryptic message, another focused only on the restaurant encounter, another discussed the community event, and each version created a completely different impression of what the controversy was actually about. That is how social media can transform a local disagreement into a nationwide argument. Context disappears first. Emotion travels faster. Then audiences pick team. Charleston supporters described him as somebody willing to challenge powerful people regardless of consequences. His critics argued that his aggressive style sometimes creates unnecessary conflict and keeps controversy alive. Neither side needed the entire story anymore. They only needed enough footage to confirm what they already believed. Then, reaction channels began analyzing body language, pose, phone calls, facial expressions, and even the timing of social media posts. Every gesture became evidence. Every silence became suspicious. Every new clip supposedly revealed another hidden layer. But body language is not a police report. A reaction video is not an investigation. And a viral comment section is not proof. That did not stop the theories. In fact, uncertainty made the story more profitable. If everything had been clearly established in one official statement, interest might have disappeared quickly. Instead, every missing detail created another open loop. Did someone know Charleston was entering that restaurant? Was J. Prince's message really directed at him? Was anybody actually pressuring the community event? What happened with the alleged document? Who had verified any of it? Those unanswered questions kept audiences refreshing their feeds. And with every new upload, the narrative changed again. At some point, the online reaction became almost as important as the original incident. That is when viewers began asking a more uncomfortable question. Are people watching because they want the truth? Or because uncertainty makes better entertainment? Because if controversy becomes more valuable than clarification, then nobody has an incentive to end the story. And Chapter 9 would reveal why controlling the narrative became the real battle. Who controls the narrative now? By this point, nobody fully controlled the Charleston White and J. Prince story anymore. Not Charleston, not J. Prince, not the bloggers, not even the people who were actually present during some of the events. The internet had taken control. Every creator selected a different piece of the timeline. Some focused on Charleston's restaurant encounter, others emphasized the community event. Some concentrated on J. Prince's cryptic post. Others turned Charleston's allegations into the centerpiece of the entire controversy, depending on which video somebody watched first. They could leave with a completely different understanding of what had happened. That is the power of framing. A headline can tell viewers who the villain is before the video starts. A thumbnail can imply danger before any evidence appears. A 15-second clip can remove the sentence that completely changes the meaning of what came after it. And the Charleston situation showed exactly how quickly opinion can harden before facts are established. His supporters continued arguing that he was simply refusing to be intimidated. His critics continued arguing that his approach escalated situations unnecessarily. Meanwhile, the most serious allegations remained unresolved within the material provided. That left viewers with a choice: accept the version that feels emotionally satisfying, or separate confirmed events from claims. Speculation, interpretation, and comedy. Charleston himself had repeatedly told people to research before believing bloggers. Ironically, that same standard also had to apply to Charleston. If a claim deserves scrutiny because a blogger said it, it deserves the same scrutiny when a famous personality says it. No exemption, no special treatment. That principle became more important than picking a side. Because once millions of people become emotionally invested, being first feels more rewarding than being accurate. And that is where reputations can be damaged long before evidence catches up. The real narrative battle was no longer about who could yell louder. It was about who could convince audiences that their version deserved to become the permanent version. But there is a deeper lesson underneath all of this. Attention can create influence. Influence can shape perception, but neither one automatically creates truth. And that is where this entire Houston controversy finally leads. The real winner isn't whoever talks the loudest. After all the restaurant tension, cryptic posts, Houston controversy, allegations, reaction videos, and endless online arguments, one conclusion stands above everything else. Winning the internet is not the same thing as proving your case. Charleston White understands attention extremely well. His greatest strategic advantage is unpredictability. He speaks directly, reacts quickly, and knows that controversial statements create conversations. That makes it difficult for opponents to ignore him, because silence can be interpreted as weakness, while responding can give him even more attention. J. Prince represents almost the opposite strategy. His public image has historically relied more heavily on reputation, restraint, influence, and carefully chosen statements. In this controversy, the contrast between Charleston's direct confrontation and J. Prince's cryptic messaging helped keep both names in the conversation. But strategically, both styles carry risks. Constant confrontation can create visibility, but it can also make audiences question whether every conflict needs to become public. Silence can look powerful, but silence can also allow other people to define the narrative for you. The smartest lesson is somewhere between those extremes. If somebody makes a serious allegation, demand evidence. If evidence exists, let proper institutions examine it. If something is only speculation, label it as speculation. And if a personal disagreement can be handled without dragging families, community organizations, innocent people, or entire neighborhoods into the conflict, that option should always come first. There is nothing weak about de-escalation. Real strength is knowing when attention stops being useful and starts becoming dangerous. The Houston situation also exposes something bigger about modern media. Viewers have more information than ever, but speed makes misinformation easier to spread. A viral clip can make somebody look guilty, innocent, fearless, or dishonest before the full context even arrives. So before choosing a team, verify. Before repeating an allegation, separate what is confirmed from what somebody merely claimed. And remember that entertainment should never become an excuse to treat real accusations like fictional plot twists. Now the question belongs to you. If you believe Charleston was right to keep challenging the narrative publicly, come on, mine. If you believe the situation should have been handled with more restraint and less public escalation, come on, do. And wherever you are watching from Houston, New York, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Chicago, or anywhere around the world, drop your city in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, like the video, share it with someone who follows hip-hop culture, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because the next story could change the conversation all over again.